everybody, Earl at thelogbook.com, back for more Infinite Sheep, back to talk again about show opens and segment opens, although, whereas I was kind of pleased with the stuff I showed earlier, this is the embarrassing early stuff, and boy is it embarrassing. One of the things that's embarrassing about it is because this was at a station where the management's concept of a music library was, just bring in a CD from home. I'm going to have to show you this stuff and talk you through it without you being able to hear the music that was originally on there, because it will get a copyright strike, because I was using like Art of Noise and Peter Gabriel and stuff like that, Why not? I didn't know any better, and that was kind of the weird joy of the pre-YouTube era, is that this stuff went through a transmitter that barely got to where it was supposed to go to begin with, since we're talking about stuff that was at Fox 46. It barely got to the viewing area it was supposed to reach, never mind further than that. If you used somebody's piece of music that you weren't supposed to, no one was really going to know. I mean, I am not saying that makes it okay. I'm just saying that was the reality. And stations everywhere did it, especially in minor markets where you were at stations like the ones I worked at, where you didn't have production library music. Now, I will warn you that whereas the show opens and segment opens that I showed before, which were at Channel 40, much later in my broadcast career, this was at the beginning of my broadcast career, and I had not learned about the very much needed element of brevity. I had not learned to keep it short. And yeah, let's just rip the Band-Aid off and go to the first one. This was the open for live coverage that we were doing from our satellite truck, which we proudly called Fox Star. And we went to, I didn't go, but our talent and engineer and someone to run camera or two went to, I think, Dallas Cowboys training camp or something for 1995. It's already too long. This open is already too long, and it just keeps going. I don't know if this was supposed to be, okay, yeah, we're still going. So, this is not billboard space, it's still going. Why are you still going? Oh, younger me, if only you knew. That's, wow. There was a piece of music by Art of Noise behind that it was timed to, and like I said, sorry, I can't put that in the video because it will draw a copyright strike, and that's not good. That's not something I want to do. Anyway, if there was a good example of an open I did at this point at my career, it was the Lady Razorbacks basketball open, which I already showed in a video quite a while back. It was about that video was about the ones that won awards. I had two things that won Addy Awards in 1 year, and that was a big deal for our station because we were the last rated station. But, perhaps having an open that's over a minute long is why we were the last rated station. Which brings us to the open for West Ark Community College baseball, which was another live thing that we were doing. And it kind of follows, okay, the baseball soars into space. we're doing this weird Doctor Who thing here, and now we are going to follow the baseball going everywhere, and it just keeps going. And for some reason, like, the lights all have to go out. We have to show the lights going out. I don't think this was used as is. I think this is a copy of the unedited first draft of this. And it feels like the occasion we are celebrating is not so much West Ark Lions baseball as Earl has learned to do brushed metal textures on extruded text. Now, this was supposed to be billboard stuff, you know. Today's show is brought to you by whoever would actually pay to sponsor this. I don't think it ever got used as that. I distinctly remember this got cut down seriously to a much more manageable length. A merciful length, I should say. But this just keeps going. We're over a minute in, and it just keeps going. Why? Why? Because we were really proud that we learned how to do textures on stuff, I guess. Wow, that was a lot of Lightwave 3D. Okay, that was too much Lightwave 3D. So, that brings us finally to one more specimen of Fox 4615 Open, and this one we're actually playing off the raw tape. This was toward the end of my time at that station, which I have to remind myself, I was only there for about 4 years. And I was only doing production from like 95 through 97. So, I got a lot of production experience under my belt very quickly, under really trying circumstances, because we were barely a working TV station. This one is a bit more like it, because it was the open for our morning show, our locally produced morning show that we did in late 96. It was still going in 97 when I left. It was called 46 Good Day. Internally, some of us called it 46 Good God. And my gut tells me the open is still a little too long, but the script was written, I read the words, and then I made sure the video was long enough to accommodate all the words. Okay, I suppose I should explain the 5 News thing. That requires some explanation. And yeah, and there are whole spots dedicated to that. The partnership with 5 News, our station owners, Bill and Karen Ferris, had previously worked as news anchors at 5 News in the 70s or so, somewhere in there, and they left and went and started their own station, which was my first TV job. But after for a while, we had a 9 o'clock newscast, a 5-minute 9 o'clock newscast, which was anchored by my pal Mike Burgess, who I wound up working with like repeatedly throughout my career in the Fort Smith market, which is kind of weird. It's just, it's a testament to what a closed gene pool that market was for personnel. It was like a black hole. You did not escape the Fort Smith market unless you were extremely lucky. Especially if you were starting from the last rated station in the market, which was where Mike and I were. Mike left to create a virtually identical 5-minute weathercast at the NBC station, which also did not have a newscast at the time. This would have been around late 95, early 96, pre-tornado 96. Pre-96 tornado, Mike left us. The tradition at Fox 4615, and I say tradition, it was not a beloved tradition. People who left were not replaced. Everyone else just had to spread out and add those duties to what they were already doing. And you might get some title to put on your door. You didn't get a raise, that's for sure. You definitely did not get a raise. But they tried many of the rest of us out as weather talent in the wake of Mike leaving. And I am kind of sad to report that there is no video still existing of me doing weather, which I kind of wish there was, because I was hilariously bad at it. I was definitely not ready for prime time, and I didn't really especially want to be doing the weather. I had kind of landed on, okay, behind the scenes stuff is my thing. On camera stuff is not my thing. And so, yeah, everyone got to do weather, and then after a while, the 5-minute weathercast at 9 o'clock just went away. It just evaporated. It was not a thing we were doing anymore. We stopped being able to sell it because we did not have Mike there, and he left and took the weather with him. I don't blame him. I don't blame him a bit. He cut himself a better deal, and he was out the door. So, Bill and Karen called their old friends at 5 News and said, could we borrow your weather people to do a weather segment for us? And eventually that led to an entire newscast that was produced by Channel 5, the CBS affiliate, for us. And it was called 5 News on Fox 46, and it was on at 9 o'clock. And I am sure that money had to change hands for that to happen. But I also believe it played into some new FCC regs at the time about local stations must produce X number of hours of local content. Local news or informational or public affairs content. And so suddenly we had to have a newscast. But Bill and Karen did not want to. They knew we did not have the personnel to mount this ourselves. They had done a newscast on Fox 46 many years earlier, but those days were gone. And it just led to this bizarre local thing where the CBS affiliate was producing a half-hour newscast, partly branded to our station, partly branded to their station, and it was what it was. I really kind of get the impression that in some cases this was where they were giving their B team some on-air experience was on our newscast. And so that's why you have that weird thing in that show open about, 5 weather on Fox 46. Why would you have that? Of course, these days, the duopoly rules have been steamrolled. And so no one would even blink at it. At the time, it required explanation. And I may or may not be correct in feeling it needed to be explained on this occasion. but at the time it was a really weird thing. So, much to my embarrassment, you have there 3 specimens of me learning what not to do with a show open. And I don't feel it's stretching things too far to say that I got much better at it later.